actually heard that Sharia law isn't that much better for men who are divorcing, but...
Yeah, this is the interesting part of Sharia.
Well, my name is Anil Kumar. I am one of the founders of Save Indian Family Foundation. In spite of its conservative sounding name, it is actually a men's rights organization in India. And primarily the work that I and my co-founders did was to expand the movement all over India in 10 years back. So right now there are around 24 men's rights NGOs all over India. So they are all independently campaigning and for change of the laws and for men's human rights.
How much progress has the men's movement made in India? Is it very big there?
It's pretty big there in terms of numbers, and yes, there is some progress. I won't say great progress, but we could stop certain amount of mandatory arrests of men in many different women-specific cases. So that is one positive thing, and we have got a lot of positive media attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And well, what is you say you're speaking this
tomorrow,
year?
yes.
What is it you're going to be talking about?
Well, yeah, this topic is about life coaching for men. So it is not about counseling men, but it is about coaching. It's like the way you coach somebody for football. Mm-hmm. So it's how do we coach a man when he's facing domestic violence or a false allegations so that he's strong, he can be empowered. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about fixing the system, but we just coach him so that he's mentally in the right place.
Fixing the individual or preparing.
Preparing him, enabling him
mm-hmm.
to take on the challenge that he's facing in his personal life. And so what are the points? What are the habits?
What are his thinking patterns? What are his conditioning that he has to unlearn so that he is strong and he can fight the false allegations or domestic violence, and in the process he saves himself, his career and money. And what we have found, we have done this for more than 10 years in India, what we have found that this life coaching not only helps the guy deal with his bad circumstances, but also it later on helps him in his career, or he's just enabled as a bigger human being.
Ah, okay. That was what I was thinking about.
Right.
Is this something that would just help men in general? And
right.
This is something that I actually I find quite intriguing. So, what are some of the, are there any unique men's issues to India specifically?
I think they're more or less the same, but because the country is very traditional, so there is a lot of traditional expectations and also the modern expectations. Both come at men at the same time. Because our economy is growing very fast, recently there's a lot of cultural changes in the country, so that makes it worse. Mm-hmm. Because the whole system, the legal system, is not ready to get educated fast enough to adapt the Western standards. So it creates all kinds of anomalies. Firstly, you have a discrimination for men, right? Men are discriminated. That is one part in the legal system. The other part is the legal system is not up to date. They are not being trained to deal with these new circumstances, like, say, for example, child custody issues, shared parenting issues. Many judges are not aware of the implications of these cases and the marital problems. So most often, sometimes a judge may even think that, it is morally he is responsible to save the marriage, when marriage has, is completely broken down.
Mm-hmm. Are there any issues with fatherlessness or like child custody, divorce, that
Yes.
kind of thing too?
Yes. If you in 1 year, around 200,000 men lose access to their children. They cannot meet their children. They cannot meet them in the schools. So these guys are in very bad shape psychologically, because due to feminist environment, their moms were most probably feminist, so they nurture the child. They are lot more connected to the children compared to the older generation of men, right? So now that they are emotionally invested much more into the children, and when the traditional court system do not give them the access to the children, so they are torn, right? So many of these guys commit suicide.
Do you have any personal stories or like
in my case, or
either people that you know or yourself or someone that you've worked with, like a client? Yeah.
Yeah. See the documentary which will come up after another 2 hours, that has a couple of 5 or 6 extreme personal stories, including suicide, because the guy, this is in Bangalore, the guy used to work in Canada. He returned back to India and he got married and he had a 2-year-old son, and he was not allowed to meet the child, and he was implicated in a false domestic violence allegation. And then he made a video of himself crying, and then he left it and he committed suicide a few minutes after that video. And then we actually protested. We did a lot of candlelight marches for him in that case. So I must tell you, every day I come across stories in the media, especially the traditional media, which is run by the local languages, not the English media in India. So they cover every day at least one death or a suicide of a man, about domestic violence, or the wife's parents or relatives attacked the man and the man has died or he committed suicide. So every day, that's an everyday story.
In what way has the legal system or the government made things worse for men in India?
Yes. So there are two things. The laws are worse. That's one part. The other part is the court processes. See, the law is one part. The processes are also worse. So the law, there are 2 domestic violence laws, not one. And the legal system is very slow. We have 35 million pending court cases all over India. So a domestic violence trial can take as much as 6 to 7 years in 2 different courts. And then you have the family courts for the child custody and the divorce and everything. And divorce in India can take 7 years, contested divorce. And the Indian society brings in the notion that a woman's life is ruined, her honor is gone if she is divorced, her life is ruined, so you better pay her alimony for the whole life. She is like 28 or 30, but you will be paying for her whole life. So that would be like $200,000 or maybe $500,000 in India, right? Mm-hmm. So no guy can pay, right? Typically in an out-of-court settlement situation in a courtroom or in a judge's chamber during counseling, the wives demand something between 5 to 10 years of income of a man who has got married only for 6 months. So they say that, okay, next 5 years income completely, you are going to give it to me. Otherwise, I'm going to implicate you in a false domestic violence case. And the court mediators are so insensitive, they will say, why do you want a false domestic violence case? Why don't you pay her money and settle it down? The guy says, I don't have money. Why don't you tell your parents to sell their property? So that's crazy. Yeah, but this is the effect of the traditionalist thinking, that the woman's honor is gone and nobody is going to marry the woman, all kinds of stuff.
That's amazing, because usually when we look at it from the outside, we say, oh, they're horrible because they think that the woman's life is ruined. But then that gives a pretext or a platform to ask for even more, because because the idea is that you've done so much damage to her. And
it is clearly established that courts are using the domestic violence laws for the alimony settlements, for this kind of an alimony, like 5 to 10 years of your income. For a younger guy who is married for a year or 2 and he has no child, this is extortion. We call this as extortion. And if somebody is married for 20 years, then that's a different story, right? But then they use the women who are older women getting divorced. They may not easily get back to a job. They make the laws for those women who are not getting divorced in any case. And they use all those laws for younger generation of women. So it is very lucrative for a woman to file a domestic violence case and walk away with a lot of money. And the worst part, the policemen, the police station and the policemen are extremely corrupt. They are worse than the mafia. So they will try to do an out-of-court settlement right in the police station, and they can get as much as 20% cut out of it.
How do they expect these men to actually somehow maintain a lifestyle if they have to give up all their income for 5 years?
So their narrative is that the woman was abusing the guy. But their narrative is that, okay, I abused you, fine, but you can forget about it, and my life is ruined. So you pay me as much as you have. So you have to literally go bankrupt. So if they ask you 5 to 10 years of your income, At least they know that the guy can sell or take a loan, and he has to pay all that money. So often the guys can't pay, so they say, okay, I cannot pay, and as a result, they face the domestic violence allegations, and they go to prison or they get arrested. The problem with India's domestic violence law is that your parents can be implicated too, right? So always the parent, because it's a joint family system, even though the parents may not have stayed with the couple, but still you can make them as accused of domestic violence. So you don't want your 70-year-old dad with a diabetes and heart ailment running around the court, that too in India, right? So what will you do? You will talk to relatives, maybe your father will sell some property or try to plead.
Wow. I noticed that a lot of this that's coming out, from what you're saying, it comes from this sort of very traditionalist, conservative,
and also liberal, everything together.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like
Yes.
there is traditionalist beliefs, but feminism usually claims
Yes.
to be against the conservative position. But how does it work with it in this case?
Okay, this is very interesting because the Indian feminists and the Western feminists are partnering together. The Indian feminists go to American or Canada universities. They become visiting professors for 6 months or so. They return back to India. And if you see this United Nations CEDAW, there is a convention against violence against women. So there are elected representatives from all over the world. But this is an interesting case that the feminists in India, who are pretty much westernized, okay, they directly argue that there is no need for a law to protect men from domestic violence. So the Indian feminists have said there's absolutely no need to protect men from rape. No woman is raping men, and no woman can physically, that is not possible. And they bring all that kind of arguments. And so they are not talking about equality in India at all. And the amount of support they get from US or Canada or Western countries, the foreign aid that comes in, so it's a vicious circle. They get the money, they create their programs, and then they go back again to show some statistics, which is cooked up, so that they get more money.
Yeah.
So my goal of reaching out to the Western countries is that to talk to you and give my narrative to the people who are funding them. I can go to the government. I have done it, actually. We have done it. We have gone to US Congress and we have met the staffers. And we have said that this is the other side of the picture. And they feign ignorance. Like, we never knew these women's groups come from India. They talk about all this sad situation for the women. So we fund them. We never knew this kind of a story, that this is what is going on.
You know, there's definitely a narrative in the West that Indian men are horrible to women.
Yeah.
Even this is a common narrative that, feminism is bad in Western countries, but maybe in Muslim countries or in India or traditional countries, there is real need for feminism.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like even an Indian guy often can say like that. Indian people can say, okay, feminism is needed for the rural women, but women in big cities, they're completely liberated. Feminism is not needed. See, this is the paradigm. The rural women in India are always empowered. They can go to the field, work, they can trade, they can set up a shop. They're always empowered. They are the self-employed people. I have never seen any weak women anywhere.
Yeah, that is the case, and it's funny that you should point that out about that people's saying, oh, you don't need feminism in the West, but maybe in places like India and its Muslim countries, and we've made the case for that. So and I mean there is a Muslim population in India too, right? And
it's second largest Muslim population of the world is in India, so it's like almost like 200 million Muslims, right? So a lot of our men's rights activists are Muslims. They have the leadership roles, and they do face a lot of domestic violence. In fact, they are more likely to face domestic violence from the woman and her family members. One of the reasons is that they also are from the poorer segment of the society. So that also has an impact. And so often we have, so many of our activists are from Muslim.
I didn't know that there were Muslim men's rights activists. That is fascinating.
Yes,
to be honest.
yes.
And how do they fit into there's a caste system
Yes,
in India?
yes.
So how does that affect men's issues and and feminine? Yeah, and how do Muslims fit into that too?
Okay, that's the beautiful part of the story. All these laws and the traditionalist behavior, that has one good part: it doesn't discriminate. It does not discriminate the rich, the poor, the celebrity, or across any castes. It is for everybody. It goes there equally. So the Muslim man had a slight advantage. A Muslim man can divorce his wife immediately, or he can remarry. Normally, I have not seen any Muslim man having two wives. Actually, I have not seen. It's very rare. But a man can have another wife if he's separated and court is not giving him divorce, so he can always remarry, or he can divorce.
To clarify, you mean a Muslim man that has more than one wife in India?
In India, because they have a Sharia for only personal law. Sharia is not applicable for criminal laws, but for personal laws, the Christians have a slightly different kind of a law, and Muslims have, that is mainly to take the diversity into account and to be nice to everybody. So right now the Indian government, which is conservative, more of a Hindu government, is trying to take that away from the Muslim men. And of course, Muslim women can also, I guess, divorce very easily, but after that is taken away, they will again be running around the court, spending a lot of money. Often I have seen first 3 years of litigation in a divorce case, men may end up paying more money to the lawyers than the alimony.
I've actually heard that Sharia law isn't that much better for men who are divorcing, but...
Yeah, this is the interesting part of Sharia or any special religious laws. The problem is for Hindus or general atheists or the general people, you have the general law, so you go to a court, family court, and deal with it. With Muslims, you have two different channels, the Sharia and the normal court system. So they have all the Hindu laws or normal laws applied to them, and they have an extra.
And then they have
so the woman first tries here or here. She has both places. So she sees which is more giving her more advantage. And if she has some influence with the mosque or the religious clergy or the religious court system, she can influence them. She gets a deal there. Okay, or she can arm twist the husband using the community. She can. Again, the same traditionalist stuff comes there. And if she feels, okay, this is not working out, she goes back to the normal court system. So it's a double whammy, like they get screwed in both the places. So it's not good. And you know, the guys, the Sikh guys,
the Sikhs,
they are recently asking their own law. But that's pretty stupid, because you have to deal with the two different systems, because the normal system still exists.
Yeah, so it's over the top of whatever your subsystem is.
So it's going to make it worse, having two different or more legal processes. For men, see, the more men interact with the system, the worse it is. It's not women and men, or it is not feminists or men. The elephant in the room is the system, or the society, or the big government. Often we ignore the elephant in the room. For men, it makes sense to remain away from the system. The closer you are with a court system, for example, in India, we often tell men not to apply for divorce or not to get into litigations or get litigated. Try to maintain certain amount of distance. That's a kind of a coaching. Because the more closer you are to the system always works on the basis of good faith. The judge will tell you that, okay, I'm here, you have to trust me because I'm working with good faith. Okay, and they are not educated about misandry and biases and all that, right? For them, a man doesn't feel pain.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. I can counsel him, I can twist him, and during the court mediation, there is some sanctity, right? But here, in the court mediation, one can also get threatened or one can be intimidated. That's what you are not supposed to do. But then the good faith argument comes in without looking into the inherent biases.
So what you're saying is the court acts with this facade of good faith towards men.
Yes.
But
yes.
in actuality, it doesn't
feel
anything for them, and it's going to treat them like they're essentially an object in this whole game.
Yes. The court system, it's just a facade that, this entire thing is like very fair. And sometimes the judges come up with some judgments, some rare judgments, which are very fair to men, okay? So that they can tell the society can be conveyed that, okay, we are fair to everybody. But then you have 1,000 judgments on this side, and you have one judgment on this side.
Which they shine a light on.
And many new guys in the men's movement, they fall for this judgment. Hey, can you please give me that judgment? As if I'm going to use it as a formula. But the moment you go to the court with that citation, the judge says, I don't know, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Wow, this is informative.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There is like some sort of like public service announcements, and there's like some media ads and things like that regard men's issues. I've seen some commercials.
Commercials about women's issues?
No, about men's issues.
Okay.
Some about women's issues, of course.
Okay.
But I think that there have been some awareness campaigns that men's groups have done.
Yes, because see, once we create an issue, then it goes into public domain. So we no longer own the issue, the society owns it. For example, International Men's Day, we promoted it for first couple of years, 2007 till 2010. We did events, we went to a mall, and we booked the space. We had some games and gifts on International Men's Day. Mm-hmm. But right now, the corporate and the brands, the FMCG, the consumer goods brands, they have picked it up. So there was a viral video by a deodorant company. So they made a viral video to advertise their product using International Men's Day.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So then you said, in the English-speaking media, men's issues, they haven't been mocked, they haven't been derided, you haven't been accused of misogyny. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And that is interesting. I mean, that's different from our experience. What about the native-spoken media?
Yeah, even there.
Same thing.
Same thing.
All right.
And that has more to do with our strategy. And we got the strategy in place pretty early in the movement when we were in infancy, like only 2,000 guys. So we have a clear strategy which every NGO follows. So we are a bit center-left. So we don't talk any conservative stuff, and we don't attack feminism. Mm-hmm. We just ignore them. Mm-hmm. We don't like them, we just ignore them. So we have never personally talked about, we don't give them any importance. That's more of a Gandhian technique. Gandhi used to do that.
Right.
So you ignore somebody, so you don't empower them. So we question the government, we question the society. They are the big actors, right? Mm-hmm. The government, the court system. And we ask for equality, equal treatment. That is where our rhetoric goes. Our focus on anti-feminism or feminism per se is very less. But in the process, the feminists are rattled, they are very angry and all that. But we do not directly say feminists are saying this, feminists are saying, we don't go after them. We say, okay, you are an NGO or you are a movement, we are also a movement. You do your work, we do ours. Of course, you are bullshitting, you are telling all false statistics, but we will hold the government responsible if they are not bringing in accountability. We will hold the media responsible if it's a fake statistics, not the sources.
Right.
So we don't want to, because the moment we give them attention, they are going to thrive.